Really great pleasure to finish up today with some closing comments from our board member, Homer LaRue. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have one rule that I will follow. I will be brief. You will be out of here. I've been given the daunting task of trying to summarize what has been a very substantive and nuanced presentation beginning from the beginning of this conference through today. And as I thought about how to do that, I thought, first of all, I was told I was supposed to do summary. That ain't going to happen. What I have done is gleaned some themes that I think we can take away from the first day to today. But first of all, I want to recognize Alan's presentation on the first day, which laid out the mission of CPR and the wonderful things that were taking place. I told Alan afterwards, it was a TED Talk. It was one of the best presentations I've seen in a long time. But let me talk about what I heard as themes. You may add some, you may have different ones, but these are some of the things that I think we can take away from the first day and a half. Remember that CPR stands for the notion of prevention as well as resolution. And I think that the first day and a half programming encompasses that. What do we talk about? Best practices. What are the kinds of things that arbitrators and parties can do to make the presentation, but not just the presentation, make the conflict, confront it before it becomes a conflict so that you have a viable process for resolving that conflict. One of the panelists said today, and I agree, there was the discussion of something that all of us are facing now, cybersecurity. That was probably one of the most bone-chilling presentations I've seen in a long time. And I don't run an enterprise. The other theme that I think I heard today was innovative ways of resolving disputes. We heard from the parties as well as from the neutrals different approaches about doing that. And that went into also an expansion of the opportunities for the use of all the talent that we have in the ADR community. And we also touched on how to get to the outcome, how to get to the resolution once the conflict cannot be resolved. And in that, how do we get it right? And what I think we saw was the need for the neutral as well as the parties to interact in a useful way. I do a lot of training of arbitrators and advocates. And one of the things that I always tell them at the beginning of that training is that when I walk into the room as an arbitrator, I own the room. And then I ask them, what do you think about that? And at the end of the discussion, the point I make to them is that you as an advocate have exactly the same opinion. When you walk into that room, you own the room because you have a case to present. So what does that mean? That means that the advocate and the arbitrator are constantly in a dynamic tension. That's good. That's how we get to the best resolution. Now, that doesn't mean that it has to devolve into uncivility. It means that there is a tension and that I'm going to respect your need to present your case, and you're going to respect my need to manage that case, to make certain that it moves along to resolution. My final two themes that I heard, and it comes out of what I just said, managing the arbitration by the arbitrator. There's no advocate in this room that wants what John Bickerman just referred to as the neutral as a potted plant. You don't want the neutral interfering with your ability to present your case, but you also want the arbitrator to be seasoned enough to know when to step in to manage the case, not to override the advocates, but to manage it. And then finally, in keeping with the innovation of approaches to the resolution of disputes, we heard in the last panel the different ways in which parties and arbitrators are attempting to use mediation and arbitration. There's one jurisdiction that the panel didn't mention that I have a lot of experience with, and in Canada, the presumption is that before you start an arbitration, and you're always appointed as an arbitrator, you're going to mediate. And if it doesn't resolve, you will then put on your hat as an arbitrator. And that's by statute. The final point, and then I promise I will have you out of here, is I think the overriding point, or at least one of the overriding points, I think, or themes, is the need to make full use of the full array of talent that we have in the ADR community. And that means being attuned to the questions of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we heard from one of the panels, the EGS panels, just some of the very exciting, innovative work that's being done. And I'm happy to say, and I'm happy to be a part of CPR, who is also doing that work. One short story, and I promise it will be short. When I and a colleague wrote a law review article 2 years ago, it was about how to increase the selection of diverse arbitrators. And we came up with what we call the RCI, the Ray Corollary Initiative. Charlotte Ray was the first woman to graduate from Howard Law School, and she was the first black woman to be admitted to a bar in the United States. We named it Corollary because we based it on work that had already been done, the Mansfield Rule, the Rooney Rule, both of which have their shortcomings, but we built on that. And what the RCI intends to do is to seek the cooperation of the rostering entities in the ADR community, those who select arbitrators and mediators, to commit themselves to, when they put together those slates will be 30% diverse. When they put together private arbitration or mediation panels, those will be 30% diverse. And I'm happy and proud to say that Alan, in his capacity as the CEO of CPR, was one of the first persons to embrace the RCI. And not just to embrace it, but make it an integral part of the CPR mission, not just the diversity mission, but it permeates through. And you heard his report on the first day of the results. 46% of the cases that were administered by CPR resulted in diversity selections in terms of the arbitrators. And so, in closing, those are the themes that I think that we can take away from the first day. And I think that we'll hear more of this really exciting and nuanced work that CPR is doing and sponsoring. And so I look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow. Don't forget the dinner tonight and the awards. But thank you very much for your time.